All right, hey guys, welcome into another episode of The Collectors. I am your host, Chad Starbuck, and we've got another fun episode for you here today. A couple things. Before we get going, though, if you like today's episode, please hit that like button down below, subscribe to the show, and share it out with your friends and family. And also, if you want, you can turn on those notifications. That way you'll get updates when new episodes come. So today, you might notice that I'm not sporting the normal sweater that I wear on the show. I have got on a vintage Pendleton today. It's a little rusty, it's a little worn, but it is certainly very comfortable. And I really just wanted to highlight vintage wear a little bit. I've certainly talked on the show that I really like vintage clothing. I buy and I sell quite a bit of it. But I also like to wear it in my everyday life just as much as I can. I usually find a lot of my items at either thrift stores, but if you really want to get the really good vintage wear, you're probably going to pick that up at an estate sale or a garage sale. And it's really something that I like to just bring into my everyday life. I think it's pretty cool to be able to take something, not discard it, and be able to wear it once again. So if you got the chance to do it, give it a try. Now let's go ahead and jump into our show today. My guest is Megan Powell of Goods Resurrected. Megan resides from the great state of Maryland, and Megan has curated some very unique collections, and we're going to get the chance to see those today. So let's go ahead and jump into our conversation with Megan Powell. All right. Hi, Megan. Welcome into The Collectors. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Chad. I'm excited to talk vintage and collections with you.
All right. Very good. I love your background, by the way. So
thank you. Recently finished
there.
Gallery wall.
Yeah, you're seeing that a lot more and more lately, aren't you, with people doing gallery walls?
Yep, I think we've just kind of all thrown caution to the wind with our homesteads and said, whatever goes.
Yeah, I've got a wall here. Let me fill it up with whatever I have. I wanted to kind of start with, we had chatted a little bit, and I think you've got a really kind of unique background with kind of how you got started. Obviously, it looks like your parents kind of got you involved in the collecting game. What was kind of the very first things that you started collecting?
I think when I was around 6 or 7, I kind of had a Wizard of Oz collection kind of thrust at me. My parents started collecting little things here and there. And I told my mom the other day, it's really strange because I don't ever remember liking the Wizard of Oz. In fact, I thought it was terrifying. Yeah. Like I had nightmares about the Wicked Witch. So they would pick up things here and there. And then before you know it, my little girl bedroom was just covered in everything Dorothy and Toto, and but some really cool pieces. I don't know why they trusted them with me, because there were like collectibles and some really old books.
Oh wow.
But my favorite thing that I remember that they got me was, if you remember the old school Franklin Mint, where you would get the little cards in the parade magazines on Sunday.
Yep.
And you would get kind of one thing each month or however long they took. But I had a really cool, it was like a little curio, and every couple weeks or months you would get a figurine. And there was this great unboxing thing. I would come home from school and there would be a new figure. And it would lead all up to Dorothy. But I just remember that, and I was thinking that was kind of like my first unboxing experience as a person, and why it got so exciting, to have something sent to you to add to your collection. So that's probably where it all started.
Yep. And I think, a lot of people have that relationship either with their parents or grandparents that kind of got them started into them. And it kind of just, it created the bug within them, or it just got them involved in the experience, like you said, of being able to, you have something that's coming to you in the mail or something like that. So I think that's a lot of fun for a lot of us when we were younger to be able to do that. And then we probably kind of transitioned that into our adulthood with, wanting to have, having an attachment to something or a certain type of thing. So you kind of mentioned to me, as you moved into adulthood, one of the things that you really got involved in was collecting vinyl.
Yeah, that was another thing that when I was a little kid, we're a big music family. Music is on 24/7 in all of our households for all of our family members. We all love singing a little too much, even though we're not very good at it. But vinyl, I remember, I think that this is so many, I didn't grow up in the age of vinyl, but my parents had vinyl. And I think so many people who love vinyl, they love the experience of sitting down with something tangible. Like, here's this great cover, the lyrics are inside, watching it actually spin. There's more of an experience behind all of it. And I definitely attach to that as a early age, I remember at Styx, like I had to listen to Renegade every single day before I went to school. That was like my pump up song, I guess. So when I had money, that was like one of the first things that I'm, it's like collecting books. It's such a bear, especially when you're in college or whatever, to move it from place to place. But I was never giving up my vinyl. So it's still one of my biggest collections. And I don't think I could ever, go digital.
So you still have a lot of it?
Oh, I have more than I could possibly.
Was there a particular, type of music that you like to collect?
I'm very much old school when it comes to tons of stuff from the 60s and 70s, rock and roll, reggae. Then I got so excited in my teenage years that there were people. I'm a huge Pearl Jam fan, so I loved Pearl Jam in the 90s. Kind of really brought back newer artists doing things on vinyl. I kind of credit them. I don't know if they're really the ones to credit, but I remember getting Vitalogy and I was like 15 years old, and they did a whole pressing on vinyl, and it was like this new big thing that newer artists are going back to vinyl. And I think that really kind of, brought people back into vinyl stores, seeing new artists, now, and now that's the thing. Now, if you come out with a record and you're a new artist, you better put it out on vinyl because that's what people want,
Yep, exactly. Whenever I'm hitting estate sales or anything like that, I'm always looking for vinyl, and I'm usually looking for rock. My son is really into vinyl and has started his own collection.
That's awesome.
And he's into, the classic rock as well as jazz as well. And so that's something that we certainly do in our family. And it's just fun to pull that out, put it on the player, and everybody.
Get dusty fingers.
Yep, exactly.
I love that dust that's still on records. I will say too, thrifting a lot. I have a huge Herb Alpert collection, and it's because when you go to a thrift store, you cannot go to a thrift store and not see Taste of Honey. And I remember too, like when I started thrifting a lot, I'm like, well, if I'm seeing it everywhere, I should get it, right? And at one point I went through my record collection and kind of weeded, thinned the herd, and I had like 10 Herb Alpert Taste of Honey. I had Christopher Cross Sailing, like five copies of that, and something else, just because you always see them. If you're an avid thrifter, you'll see like there's 10 artists I feel like you always see at the thrift. So it's hard to not pick them up when you see them.
Yep, exactly. There's certainly a lot of those out there that are probably just everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So obviously you're a buyer and a seller, right?
Yep.
And I think recently you have just kind of made the transition to where you're doing this full time. Is that right?
Yep. Like so many other people last year, I got laid off in March of last year, and I've been selling off and on online for about 20 years. I started when I was probably 19 or 20. Sold my first big item on eBay, basically because I needed money as a poor college student, not because I was, in love with vintage anything. So I've always done it. And my mom is a big, antique reseller. She's been my whole life. So it's always been in the background as something that I've done as a side job. Yep. But as of last March, it was like, well, I guess I'm doing this full time now, and I can do it from home. So that's good.
Yep. And how, and that transition into that, I mean, so obviously if you were doing it part-time, you were probably just, doing it when you could, but now being able to transition and doing it full time, are you on a lot of different platforms, or are you primarily selling on Instagram, eBay, or?
So I kind of hit all platforms. I sell on Poshmark, Mercari, Etsy, eBay, Marketplace, and Instagram. Wow. And I say when I started doing that full time, I was way more into making sure that everything that I listed hit all those platforms. And then it was a trial and error, because I really wanted to see, is it worth my time to be on less of them? Yep. And so there are certain platforms that I've shied away from. Instagram is fantastic. I've loved being able to sell on there because I love the relationships that I've been able to build with the people who are buying from me. I love seeing things in their home afterwards. I love, if there's a problem, we can communicate rather than it being like a third party kind of thing. So I really enjoyed selling on Instagram. And then Marketplace has been crazy too, because people are on their phones and they're always opening up Facebook. So those are my main places to sell, but I still will hit a random sale here and there from the other ones, but I've kind of narrowed it down to where I'm listing.
Yep. No, that's really cool. And I think it's really, it's nice to be able to do that and be able to do something, right within your home. You don't have to have a brick and mortar.
Yep.
And you can make a living at it. So, kudos to you for being able to do that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like I said, it's been spurred a lot by people on Instagram. So I'm very thankful that people are still wanting to buy, and still, I think like this year of people just being in their homes more really made people want to take time and feather their nests with things that are really pleasing to them. It's like gallery walls. We're spending more time inside. Like, what do we want to see all the time? We want our eyes to be happy. So hopefully that will continue.
Now, so you're in Maryland, right?
Yep.
And I'm only guessing. I'm in the West. You're in the East, and I always envy the people in the East because there's just more stuff out there. From what I can tell, and
there's definitely older stuff, I would say.
There certainly is. So where are you primarily finding your things?
So I will say that with the kind of switch of people, working from home, there are a lot of new resellers out there. There are a lot of people either that were resellers that are doing this full time now. It's getting harder and harder to find things.
Yeah, it is.
So I kind of have to get creative in where I'm sourcing. So I will go anywhere from a flea market to a thrift store to I actually source on eBay. I use other platforms to source because you can always find that random deal if you're paying attention. I go to estate sales. I've really been using liveauctions.com through their live auctions because again, you're kind of widening your pool, your sourcing pool when you're looking for these things. So I've had to cast a wider net this year just because you go to the thrift stores and everyone's thrifting. A lot of people are thrifting to resell. So it's getting challenging, but it just requires me to get and other resellers to get a little more creative. And I've also just been telling people, hey, this is what I do. Yep. If you have stuff, let me know. Maybe we can do a trade, maybe, something like that. So it's just been a cause for being creative and finding new places to get stuff. So
yeah. And I've certainly transitioned a lot more to like liveauctions.com or HiBid or some of those auction sites to be able to buy like lots of items.
Right.
I don't mean lots of items, but I mean item lots where you can get a lot of things for a pretty good price, and then you can resell them from there. So
and also I miss regular live auctions more than anything. It was my original my mom used to drag me to auctions. It was my original place that I started buying and reselling from, and I miss that like competitive thing. I miss standing toe to toe with someone and kind of staring them down. I miss buying those huge lots of things. That's kind of been the only thing that I really miss. But I do like about the live auctions, and I do a few estate sales down here that you can purchase the lots without having to go to the estate sale. I do love that your time is so much more valuable, rather than going to an auction at 7 a.m, getting home at 8 p.m, because you've got to weed through all this crap you don't want. So I've liked the little, cut down of time there, but I still miss that fighting with someone.
that kind of that interaction of being involved
definitely
in that live auction. So you have, you have a really great Instagram. You showcase your items on there really nicely, and you've got a lot of unique collections of your own. And do you separate your own collections from the items that then you're buying and selling, or are they kind of just one and the same?
I will say that there was so one specific that was a super happenstance kind of collection is the Statue of Liberties that I have. It literally started as something that I saw one week and I was like, oh, I like the look of this and this will be really cute and someone will buy. That's always my thought. And I think a lot of people have, oh, someone will love this. That's always what goes through our head. And I kept finding them in like a month period. They were finding me. Statue of Liberties were everywhere. And so then I just kind of put them all together on a shelf and I was like, maybe I have a new collection.
I
need another collection, like a hole in the head. But so I was like, oh, I guess I collect Statue of Liberties.
Now, with the Statues of Liberty, are you looking for kind of the unique older ones, or
pretty much all of the ones that I have are going to be metal, cast iron.
Okay.
One of them is like a lamp base. So yeah, I'm looking. Actually, some of them are thermometers. I want ones that are like rusty.
Yeah.
I want the good, like crusty old ones.
Good one. Yeah.
I've gotten to a point where I might live with something for a little bit,
Yeah.
even though I know I'm going to sell it. But I try and keep my selling stuff away from my keeping stuff. But you know how it is when you start reselling, you're like, you want to keep it all.
I know.
You just can't. You don't have room for it. So I've kind of gotten, especially with art, like I'll live with it for a little bit, enjoy it, and then I know I can pass it on to the next home. So.
Well, let's talk about some of those things that are the keepers a little bit. So we chatted
There's so many.
about the statues of liberty. I think one of the things that you kind of started with as well, and they're art prints that I have also found, and I think that they're really unique. They're really cool. Is the Maxfield Parish.
Yep.
So you've collected those too?
So that was kind of like, I call it my first big girl collection. It was the first thing I remember spending money on that I knew I was going to keep. And I think I bought it at like 19 or 20. We always had like the fig prints in the house growing up. I think my mom had one that was original and like really tiny, but she's from Vermont. And so he spent his later years in New Hampshire. So if you go antiquing in, the New England area, you're going to see Maxfield Parish everywhere. So we spend a part of our summers up there. So when we were antiquing, it's like what I always saw. And I loved the muted colors. I loved the kind of romantic looks to all of them. So I kind of said, that's going to be my first big girl purchase. And it was. And then I just kept going from there. There's one that's behind my head.
Right there. Yep.
And then there's a dinky bird up there. But I have a couple other ones that just aren't displayed. But I loved, like I said, the romanticism of them and the muted colors, and they spoke to me. They still do. They've gotten outrageous in prices, but I'm glad that I have the ones.
Oh, I know. They certainly have. I mean, they've certainly become a collectible item.
Oh, yeah.
As well. What is the one that is behind your head?
I think it's Daydream. I can't remember the name of that one.
I had that one as well.
And I remember buying it I had a collage wall in high school around my entire room. I did the ceilings, I did everything. Wow. And I remember thinking it was cool because I bought like a terrible print off eBay for $10. And I thought it was just so like, it really elevated the room of like, babies and collages and stuff, which it didn't at all.
Yeah. So one of the other collections of yours that I think you're probably pretty well known for is all the different Christmas items that you have. And I think you have various collections within Christmas that you do too. So tell us about those a little bit.
So it's all of this stems from my mom. My mom is like the Christmas like maven. She has an entire room in her house that holds her Christmas stuff. I mean, wow. It takes her a month to decorate for Christmas. And she always had more primitive stuff. She's got great like antique Santas and ornaments and all that stuff. So I always loved Christmas because I was surrounded by amazing Christmas things. Yeah. But then when it came to collecting, it was like right when mid-century was getting really hot again. And so tinsel trees were on my radar. All of that, I was just like the kitschier, the better. So I really love, like I finally got rid of a few tinsel trees. I decided I didn't need 6 this year. So I really love that kitschy stuff, but there are ceramic pixies are probably one of my favorite collections that I have. I have a collection of snowmen. I have a big collection of plastic reindeer. It's kind of all like happened organically. Just when I would see things here and there. And then of course, then the off season, you're on eBay all the time, like trying to add to your collection.
Right.
But I think estate sales, when I really started getting into estate sales, when you start to see things more often and they catch your eye, you're like, ooh, I could get into that. I could have multiples of those.
Yep. Oh, I see. You do. I mean, that is the one thing that you see at every estate sale, is something
random Christmas.
Yep, is something associated with Christmas. Now, a lot of the stuff is the new modern types of stuff, but then you'll find that home that's in the older part of town, and they've got still in the great packaging of the shiny brights, those types of things. So you have to really be careful with what you're pulling out, but there's usually some really cool stuff.
One of the best estate sales I ever went to was literally the week before lockdown last year. And it was something it wasn't even on estatesales.net. I think it was like maybe on Craigslist or something
Okay.
really random. And the guy had taken terrible photos. It was terrible. And it all looked like junk. And something told me to go there.
Yeah.
And I walk in and I'm the first person there. And I see, revolving tree stand. I
Okay.
see a box that looks like an aluminum tree.
Oh.
I see ceramic trees. I see Shiny Brights, a whole stack. I'm talking like 20 boxes of Shiny Brights.
Wow.
And I'm like, I don't know where to grab first. So I start like making a pile. And the guy literally looked at me and he opened the box and he's like, what is this? And I wasn't even going to tell him because I didn't want it to affect the price he was going to give me. So that was my only like crazy, hit the honey hole with everything shiny bright. And I just kind of took a chance because the price was so good. And finally put it up this year. It's a 7-foot tree. All the branches were there, had a revolving stand, had the color wheel, everything. So that was the picking gods were shining down upon me that day.
That is pretty amazing. What about the Santa mugs? I think
I can't believe I forgot that. That's probably my longest Christmas collection. I started that 7 or 8 years ago, and I probably have 200, and I thinned the herd a little bit this year.
200.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too that where I live now, I have a very small space. I was able to showcase as many of them as I could this year. And then I thought, if this is all the space that I have, there's no need for them to sit in boxes. So I did a couple giveaways this year with those, and I couldn't believe people went crazy. And I understand it. It's because it's like everything else, it's getting harder and harder to find. I mean, if the products aren't out there because people like me are hoarding all of them, but that's one of the other things too about Instagram is that it's great to see people's collections, but once you start seeing collections you've never seen, you as a collector, it's harder to buy them because now people are aware of them. Like those pixies, I had so many people messaging me saying, I've never seen these before. And then you go on eBay a couple months later and the prices are even crazier because there's that buzz or there's, that new frenzy of people buying stuff that they didn't know was out there.
Yep. And I think the neat thing about the Santa mugs is that, for one, they're all very similar, but then they're all really different, right?
Yeah.
Because it's the Santa face, on a mug with your handle, but then there's the little differences between all the different mugs.
And some of them are so creepy. And I've actually started looking for one. I like the ones that are creepy. And some of them, they'll have like tons of lipstick on them, or like I like the ones that are weird. But I think too so much about all of that stuff about Christmas, especially. I love collecting things that I know people used.
Yeah.
The same thing with vinyl, the same thing with art, all these things. Like I love knowing that somebody else, like somebody was sipping their cocoa out of that on a Christmas morning one day, most likely, And I love that. I mean, some with ornaments, I love knowing that whoever was putting that on their tree and enjoying it. Like that's such a cool feeling to know that things are having so many different lives,
Yep. Well, I do have to tell a quick story. One of the things that kind of brought you and I together was an item that you had that I also have. It was an angel with wings.
Yeah.
That I got for my very first Christmas, and I still have it. And it has my birth date on the back of it. It says first Christmas on it. But then you posted a picture of one that you have, and I'm going, that's my ornament that my mom got me, my very first Christmas.
I love it. And I think that too, especially with Christmas. I mean, Christmas, for people has so many, for most of us have good memories. And so that's what I love about these things. Like I said, that they've just had so many life cycles and so many people get to enjoy them. And also when you find stuff like that, I'm amazed because I break things constantly, that something has gotten to me and somebody hasn't, mishandled it.
Yeah.
That some of these pieces have been around for, 60, 70, 80 years is amazing.
No, it certainly is. And I think those are great collections. And I think Christmas is something, Christmas attracts everybody.
Right. Even people that don't celebrate Christmas, like Christmas decorations, you know?
Exactly. Now, one of the other items that I think is unique that you've collected over the year is the chalk art, kind of the circus or the carnival type of chalk art. Tell us a little bit. I
picked up a couple pieces so I can show. So this is one of my favorite collections. I think that it started, my brother collected a little bit, and my mom would buy him pieces here and there. And I just loved the look of it. I loved the story of it. I love that can you imagine going to a carnival, instead of a stuffed teddy bear, they hand you this. They hand you this breakable, highly breakable, weird, like wishing well. Like, that's amazing. And the fact that this made it, into my hands is incredible. I was kind of going through part of my collection yesterday because I love a lot of them that I found people have written on the bottom of them. These don't, but dogs are like one of the biggest parts of my collection. They did dogs like crazy. But a lot of them people will write on the bottom. The one that I picked up yesterday, somebody had written 1951 Carnival, and I forget where, it was somewhere in Virginia that they had gotten it. But a lot of them are banks. Yeah. You can hear something's in there. But I love how kitschy they are. I love that they're just Americana. I mean, this is Americana. It was huge during World War II, kind of 45 to 65 as it was the height of when they were doing these for carnival prizes. And I was talking to someone earlier because I showed a picture of it on my Instagram, and I love that even though I have a bunch of Cupid dolls, but none of them are the same. Yep. There's always like, a glitter here, or they did a different paint scheme there. I just love, they're just so delightfully kitschy. And I have probably 200 of them. I don't have anywhere to display them right now, but when I was able to display most of them, it almost felt like Night at the Museum, like they came to life at night and like had their own little parties, They're just so fun.
Yeah, I think they're so fun. And you're right, to the point to where, yes, here, young man, here is a breakable piece of
plaster of Paris. Like, I don't know what your reaction would have been, Yeah.
Now go hit your next ride and hang on to that.
Yeah. And some of them are really risque too. Like some of the ones that are really, really popular, really hard to find, are like a Mae West. And there's some nudes. So there's some pretty risque ones. And I don't know if they would give those to like if they could tell you were 16, they would give you the Mae West one. I don't know. But they're so fun, and they're getting harder and harder to find. Especially too, like, if you start collecting something, the more you're collecting it, you keep seeing the same thing over and over again. So when you find that item you don't have, it's like, ooh, I don't think I have that one in my collection. That's getting harder. Well, also when you have so many, it's hard to find ones you don't have.
Now, a couple other items that you have started collecting as well, or not started collecting, but have collected over the years. One is, I find it's very unique, and I had another guest on the show a couple of months ago who also collected hands, like wooden hands and hand figures, is right. Tell us a little bit about those and why hands?
So one of the other things that I had a large collection of is like religious iconography. I've always been drawn to strange Jesus and Mary pictures, whatever it is. And so that actually kind of grew out of having a lot of praying hands. Like, it was part of my religious collection to have like wooden praying hands. They were very big. I remember my grandparents always having those in their house. That's probably why I was attracted to those. And then out of that grew just love of all things body parts. I don't know if that sounds weird. Like I did something the other day. I love faces too. I thought about it afterwards. I kind of have a collection of faces, whether it's portraits or I have a lot of busts. I don't know. I've always been attracted to hand. I have a painting right here, but I just love that there's something so beautiful and something that works. Like, it's like why I love so much of antique and vintage things. It's because they have a purpose, but they have a beauty with them, and I kind of feel that way about hands. Like we do so much with our hands. So there's a certain beauty of what we have, so that kind of just was one of those things too. Like, it's like everything else, once it's on your radar, you keep seeing it. And if it's the right price, I'll add another one to the collection. Why not?
Why not? Hey, I do want to touch back because I don't want to miss out on this. And I think it was one of the very unique items that you have in your collection. You're talking about your crucifixes and things like that. So I do want to touch on that a little bit of how you got involved in that. And I think you've got one, maybe not necessarily the crucifix, but it's kind of,
I should have brought it down. Yeah. It's really weird. So like I said, it's like everything else. Once you start, I will say with the religious collection, I've always been good about keeping it for a little bit and selling it because my mom told me once that it looked weird altogether. That was like creepy. So I'm like, okay, that's creepy to you, but I like it. So I've been pretty good about selling those off. So like again, I've seen so many things. You'll see the traditional, the man praying, the grace guy, or you'll see the traditional, super white guy Jesus or whatever it is. So I've kind of been good. I do have one really weird picture. It's of Jesus holding a mushroom, and somebody wrote on the back, Jesus manifests a mushroom to shield ladies from rain or something like that. I'm like, I don't remember that anywhere, but it's cool. So actually my favorite thing that I have, it's a huge hunk of petrified mushroom. It's like massive. I should have brought it down. And somebody carved the Holy Family into it. It's so weird. It's so kitschy. I'm sure there's only one of them. And it just like, every time I see it, I smile. Like, I've got to believe that, that would make the Holy Family smile to know that they're engraved in a giant mushroom.
Of course.
So I think that like once you get into the rabbit hole of collections, I think that's most people kind of break off into that. All right, if I've seen it all, let me find the weirdest thing that I can find in that vein.
Yep. Now I'm guessing that's probably one of the most unique, weirdest items that you have then.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking of collections that I've had and parceled off. And two of the ones that I didn't mention, I used to have a huge collection of copper heaters.
Okay.
Like the old school ones that you'd plug in.
Yeah.
And they have the coil in the middle.
Yep.
It was one of those things too. Do you know how big those things are? And I had like 30 of them. And I had nowhere to put them, and they were just kind of here and there. And I'm like, this is out of control. And again, like, why did I start collecting copper heaters? And the same with carboys. I used to have a huge collection of Demi-John glass carboys. Again, they're very sizable. So 30 of them just hanging out was not really the best collection to have. So they got sold as well.
Yeah. Well, I think that's cool. I mean, we can go through periods, right? We can go through periods where we're really into something, and then all of a sudden, our feelings toward it change, and we can.
And I think that's what I was looking back, and I was talking to my mom about all the collections that both of us had, and some of the stuff were like, why did we ever collect that? Like, I would never like it now, but clearly, 20 something me liked it, or for her 40 something her liked it. And I think that's great. I think it's, we evolve. It's cool to see our collections evolve as well.
Yep. So as a buyer and a seller, do you have a story of kind of that item that you found and you thought, oh, wow, I've got to pick this up. And then you've been able to flip it like for, a lot more money than you expected?
So I still have this, and I'll show it to you. So I can't tell you that I flipped it, because I'm just like, it's still such a, I can't believe that I found it piece that I don't know if I'll sell it, but I'll show it to you. Okay. So I mentioned that my mom is from Vermont. Our family has a lake house up there. And so I was fortunate enough to live up there last year. So I would try and find estate sales. Again, picking New England, there's all sorts of great stuff up there that's nice and old. And I found this super random estate sale. It was in the middle of nowhere in Vermont, talking no cell service, no, you're down dirt roads. And I shouldn't have been there by myself. But I get there, I was there early, because if you're in Maryland, if you don't get to an estate sale 3 hours before it opens, you're not getting the good stuff. You're 30th in line, if that. So I, have that mentality. I get there super early. There's no one there. The guy who's running the estate hadn't even shown up yet. There's a giant free pile out front. I just start picking through it, and then he shows up, and I'm like, are you open? Is it okay to go in? So I had the whole place to myself.
Wow.
This place was falling down. It was so dirty. I luckily had a mask on, because I'm sure I would have inhaled something very bad for me. But I just started rooting around in a box. He said, have at it, make me a pile, and I'll make you an offer.
Sure.
Perfect. Just the way we like to do things. Yeah. So I remember like feeling it. Like I've sold, I know, this style, and I felt it. And I was like, ooh, I know what that is. And so this awesome Roseville wall pocket.
Oh, wow.
Near mint condition.
Yeah.
With this acorn, this is the acorn pattern.
Yep.
And the wall pockets in this pattern are very hard to find, and let alone in this condition. and it was just wrapped up in a random box. And I was like, ooh,
Well,
the picking gods showed down on me again. And so
I think that's really cool that you knew what that was. That is something, I think we all have knowledge about certain things, right? That is
right.
certainly something I would not have knowledge about to be able to, I would have looked right over that. But you knew right away, even from the feel, that was something that you had to pick up.
There's a certain feel about rose. Well, to me, this might sound weird. A certain feel, there's a matte finish to it that I don't know. Once you see it a bunch of times, you can see it and you can feel it. And I tell you that I felt my hand go across it. I was like, ooh, there's something good in there. Please don't be broken.
Yeah.
So that was probably my favorite like moment of, discovery. I felt like I was an archaeologist,
Well, what is the value of Roseville now?
So the Roseville ranges all over the place. I mean, there are pieces that go for thousands of dollars and there are pieces that go for $40.
Yep.
But this particular one, from everything that I've researched, is probably in the $800 to $1,000 range.
Wow.
So I will take that for an honest day's work.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great day's work. So.
Yeah. So I had just gotten a Roseville. They're very antiquated and the numbers don't mean much anymore in the age of the internet. But I still like them. I still get them. I have some resource guides, reference guides.
Sure.
And I had just gotten one and it wasn't in there. So I just kind of did a little research online to see what they were going for. So, and I was with my mom and I'm like,
well, I mean, it certainly pays to be able to have knowledge about certain items, right? So you can go in and you can be able to, spot something right away that, everybody else is passing over.
Right. And I think that that's what's so great too about like seeing now, especially with Instagram, seeing the kind of evolution of where people are in their journey of picking and selling, is that I look back and I think, oh God, I lost so much money over the years because I was selling stuff that I just didn't know what it was. Mm-hmm. And it's like everything else that, you pay for your education a lot in this business. And some of it is just like not learning until years later. Oh my God, that was whatever it is. Then I should have valued it. No wonder it sold so quickly, because someone was probably like, yay, this idiot has no idea what they're selling. But I think it's like everything else, you learn by doing, you learn by seeing stuff. I've kind of pushed myself in areas that I know very little about glass. I can give you a very basic understanding of certain glasswares, And so I've kind of pushed myself that if I'm out, take a picture, do a Google image search, and I'm trying to find, those things that there are gaps in my knowledge to kind of fill in. But glass is like my biggest one.
Yeah. Well, I've certainly had that same experience where I've listed something on Etsy and it's like sold within the hour, and I'm not going, oh, well, wait a minute. Maybe I did not price it.
What's wrong with this picture?
Yeah.
Oh, I know so many people have benefited from my lack of knowledge in what certain things were, and good for them. That's what this game is all about. We all buy it low to sell it high. So if somebody else can make a buck, then that's all right.
Exactly. Well, before we head out today, I want to make sure that we're touching on all the different things that you've been collecting. Is there anything else that you want to showcase for us?
The collection that I have is jadeite, and I've probably been collecting that for a while. And that's something else too, that like I lived with it for a while, and I also would hoard it. If I saw it, I was buying it. I didn't care what the price was, because it was so hot. It was like right after Martha Stewart kind of made it really big. She was showing her collections. And so after that, like prices went through the roof. So if I ever saw it at estate sales or auctions, I was just buying it up. And I didn't really have I didn't have anywhere to display it. I had pieces here and there. So that's been an easy collection for me to kind of, again, I know the rare pieces that I have, I'm probably going to keep those. And the other stuff like dishes and saucers and stuff like that, they can go live with somebody else who's building up their collection.
Right.
And I've loved to see that too. One of the things I love selling is instant collections. I love, making a grouping of something, 5 or 10 items and saying, boom, here's your instant collection, go wild. Yeah. I love that. That's been one of my biggest things as a seller, is trying to give that to somebody else. Because isn't everything better with like more of them?
Yeah. No, that's a great way to do that. And that's something I haven't necessarily thought about, is being able to, group things together and, create that starter collection for somebody.
And it's a great way to sell things too. I think that especially when I was finally able to show some of my Christmas collections this year, I was inundated with messages of people saying, how do I start a collection? And it's like, I don't know. As somebody who has a lot of collections, you don't really know how to answer that. It's kind of a strange thing. And I'm always like, well, we all know what we like. I love so much of what I love about Instagram and Facebook and everything else, that where you're finally seeing into people's homes, is seeing that people collect such a wide variety of things. Yeah. And then no two people collect the same thing. And even if they do, their collections are different. I love that. I love seeing what, I love that you have pennants, that there's something there with you, that you are attracted to pennants. And I love that, like, no two people are ever going to be, drawn to the same thing. And that's why there's so many great weird collections, because we all are, something pulls at us, whether it's nostalgia or your eye is drawn to something, so I guess the only thing I could tell people was, I don't know, like, what your eye is attracted to. Don't try and collect somebody just because you see somebody on Instagram collecting it. Like, what are you drawn to? And also, what can you afford? You can have an instant collection of anything. I could have an instant collection of cars if I had millions of dollars, but most of us don't. We start by buying stuff that's cheap. Most of us are buying what we can. If we see something multiple times and we're like, oh, I can afford that, I can have multiples of those. That's what most of us gravitate towards. We're not gravitating towards what we can, spend tons of money on.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And I think that's a great perspective to be able to take a look at it that way, to know that we're all kind of in this together, to be able to kind of pull the items that we're passionate about.
Yeah.
Be able to pull those together. So I think that's.
And we all pull them together, even if we had the same kind of collection. I love that too, of seeing like everyone displays things differently, depending on their eye or their space or whatever. It's great. I love that about collecting.
Sure that people have a way of connecting with you. What are the best ways to do that?
So I am most active on my Instagram account, which is Goods Resurrected. By the end of the month, I will have my own website where you'll be able to purchase directly from me through there. And I'm really passionate about helping other sellers save time and money. So a portion of the website will also be dedicated just to resellers and giving as much information as I can for newbies and for people that have been doing this for a while, just giving as much a resource space for them as well.
Is there, so you'll be able to on the website as well. Will that just be the same name?
goodsresurrected.com.
All right. But other than that, the best way to reach you is going to be probably through Instagram. Do you have a Facebook? I don't remember.
Yep. That's same thing. Goods Resurrected is on Facebook as well.
All right. So that's a great way for people to connect with you. So Megan,
I'm always fielding reseller questions or collection questions. So I can't always give you the best answer, but I'll try.
Well, I think that's really cool. And I like that we can all be a resource for others as well. I certainly do that. I have certain people that I follow on Instagram, and if I've got a question about something, because I know that they've got the knowledge for it, better to be able to gain a little bit of knowledge from somebody else and to try and guess.
Absolutely, because those guessings, that's what costs us most of the time.
Well, Megan, it was a pleasure having you on the show today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I enjoyed this so much, Chad. Thank you so much.
Well, very cool. Take care. And as always, keep collecting.
Never going to stop.
All right. Thank you. Well, there you go. We have another episode of The Collectors is all wrapped up and in the books. And it was certainly a pleasure having Megan Powell of Goods Resurrected on the show today. It was really cool to see a lot of the different unique collections that she has, from her chalk art to her Statues of Liberty, to talking a little bit about some of her early collections of vinyl and The Wizard of Oz. So I certainly want to thank her for being on the show today. And I also want to thank you guys. Thank you so much for watching the show today and for watching all the episodes. Be sure and hit that like button down below, and be sure and share this out with your friends and family. And as always, I'm always asking you to subscribe to the channel too, so you can check out all the episodes. And then join us next time on The Collectors as we travel the country in search of another unique collector and collection. Take care and keep collecting.